The Chief of Staff to Victoria's opposition leader Matthew Guy has resigned following revelations he asked a Liberal donor to make payments to his private business. Mitch Catlin's departure comes just months from a state election. Victorian political reporter Simon Love is live for us in Melbourne. Simon, when did Mitch Catlin fall on his sword?
This morning, Ash, Mitch Catlin offered his resignation to Matthew Guy. A Liberal Party room meeting was actually delayed for several hours as they sorted this out. Now, it follows reporting by the Age newspaper about a contract that Mitch Catlin had drawn up as part of his catchy media and marketing business. And this was just prior to him joining the taxpayer-funded Leader of the Opposition's office after Matthew Guy rolled Michael O'Brien in the Liberal leadership contest last year. Now, Mitch Catlin, he has resigned as Matthew Guy's Chief of Staff, leaving him without a Chief of Staff heading into an important election period, particularly as Parliament goes back today. Matthew Guy did say this morning he'll appoint a new Chief of Staff later today. But the allegations were that Mitch Catlin had asked a Liberal donor to funnel $100,000 into his private marketing business. Now, that was on the side of receiving in this contract, receiving a taxpayer-funded salary. But Matthew Guy insists that this contract was never signed, never entered into, although the government's trying to say that this may have breached the state's strict donation laws. So here was Matthew Guy's reaction and response to the resignation of his Chief of Staff.
He's a friend of mine. He's been very close to me over the last, particularly since I've got this position back. So no, of course I'd never deny that it's not something that hurts me too. Of course it does.
So many questions here for Matthew Guy about his involvement, whether he had known about this agreement that had been drafted by his Chief of Staff that was coming into his office, Mitch Catlin. Now, Matthew Guy is trying to make a distinction here, saying that no contracts were signed or entered into, trying to highlight that the government has had some scandals that probably are far worse, but certainly the government has been refuting that. Here's what Matthew Guy had to say.
Nothing was signed, nothing was agreed to, and Mitch and I believed it was better to have everyone employed through the DPC budget, which is what it is today. And again, that says everything.
Now, I have reached out to Mitch Catlin for a response, left a message with him and yet to hear back from Mitch Catlin, but seems to be cleaning out his office and won't be seen around Spring Street in the lead up to November 26, Ash.
And Simon, I see there's been an apology from the Premier and also the Health Minister following your exclusive story here on Sky News. Talk us through it.
Yes, this relates to 92-year-old Danny Latham, who died 2 days after a mix-up with an ambulance dispatch. Danny Latham from Orbost in East Gippsland in regional Victoria. His wife called an ambulance. He was ramped at 2 hospitals and also 2 airfields before being taken here to Essendon Airport on the west side of the city, then across to the Clayton Hospital, Jesse McPherson Private Hospital, where he was ramped for quite some time without his family not even knowing what had happened to him. Now, he died a couple of days later. Colin Latham had told me exclusively here on Sky News that he wanted the Premier to fix the health system in light of what happened to his dad. Here was the Premier's response when I asked him this morning.
Of course, I send my sympathies to that family, and of course I apologise to any family who's let down by a system that's under enormous pressure. But I do want to reassure that family and all Victorian families that our nurses, our ambos, our doctors, the whole team are working as hard as they can. They have our full support.
The Health Minister, Marianne Thomas, was also out this morning announcing the expansion of a virtual emergency department for aged care residents, but also asked her about the Danny Latham case. This was her response.
Obviously what happened to Mr Latham is very tragic and obviously very upsetting for his family. I know that what happened has been investigated by Ambulance Victoria, and I also know that Ambulance Victoria have been in touch with the family and have outlined to them the outcomes of their investigation.
So a fair bit happening here on Spring Street today, Ash, and tomorrow there'll be a condolence motion for the late MP Jane Garrett. There's still no update yet on her state funeral, so a bit happening here on Spring Street.
Never a dull moment. Simon, live there at Victorian Parliament. Thank you.